Just like that's going to be our opener every time we're like, hey, if you're a teacher, don't record your kids. That's breaking the
Right.
law.
Popular teachers aren't popular because they violate FERPA.
Welcome to the Type C Teachers Podcast, a podcast about being an educator online and all the cool stuff that comes along with it. Before we get started, while you're locking into your drive to work or climbing up that Stairmaster, I just want to remind you guys to hit the subscribe or follow or like, depending on where you're hearing this from. But enough from me. Let's get started with the podcast.
My name is Jake Rupp. Fits across the knuckles. I am Mr. Rupp on the internet. It's hashtag JRupp because I thought that was really funny when hashtags were a thing and I never grew out of it. And now we're like in a post-irony situation. I've been teaching for almost 20 years. I'm a father of two. I've been married my entire adult life. And I am somebody who believes in the power, that not necessarily of education, but in our power to create the power in education. Like we can make choices that affect people. And I like to make posts about that, and I like to make posts that my students like and that my daughters are proud of and that my wife's not embarrassed about for having a husband who's on the internet. And so everything kind of orbits that. But I'm going to be teaching until they name a high school after me, and that's going to be the Rupp Robots. And the school song will be Darude Sandstorm, and it's going to be spectacular. And so that's who I am.
And my name is Mike. I go by Mr. Mikey Fresh online. I've been teaching 8th grade for 1 year. I taught high school, I taught elementary school, and I've been dancing on TikTok for way longer than I should have since Musical.ly.
Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you how little I know about what we're getting ourselves into here. I used to not understand editing. So some of my earlier TikToks, I was trying to like burn through an entire like slideshow without messing it up, and I'd record it over and over again. It's like I can talk in front of a class for 15 minutes, 20 minutes clean, but like put a camera on top of a chair in front of me and
I freeze
all
up.
of a sudden I was shook. I think I tried to talk too fast.
Yeah, I definitely get in that same boat, except I feel like I can't talk to my kids in front for, 30 minutes at a time. There's just moments when I feel like when I get hit with like insecurity or like inadequacy where I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I can actually do this, and it's a bad time to think about this because I'm in front of everyone.
I don't think that's the kind of insecurity you should carry, mainly because like, okay, you've already established an ethos. Like you are credible by standing up there. When I stand in front of my class and I talk about anything, teachers have established ethos for me. So because I am in front of a class filling that role, I am immediately trustworthy. And so like I think maybe I don't know, the sorts of criticisms and concerns that you place upon yourself are not ones anybody in that audience would recognize because they are so accustomed to the teacher being the authority. And it's not like you're doing anything egregious. Like, we're not all that good at indoctrinating. So you're probably a lot more successful at it. And if anything, the problem comes from cutting yourself short more than it does what you were saying before you thought about it.
Right.
I wonder how much overlap you and I have in a lot of people's TikTok experiences. And I'm not saying that on like a celebrity level, of course, but I think a lot of when you follow teachers also show up. The second the classroom's in the backdrop.
Oh, yeah.
I think I see people in your comments that I know.
Yeah.
I should say it that way.
Yeah, I've
So
read
that
it
speaks to something.
in comments, like teachers have this cheat code to making content. It's like, game recognized game. It's like, oh, I know I've been here before. Not just, us as educators and teachers and be like, oh, I've like recognized this situation, I know this, but it's like students and everyone's been a student. Everyone's had a teacher that they can relate to in that exact situation. So I get what they're saying by it's a cheat code. Also, just like recording kids can be very enticing.
We could the amount that I could talk about that, and I think we maybe I think this ends up being like an organic situation where things like that are probably going to come up. I don't know how restrictive we need to be about shelving that sort of thing for like to make it its own actual focus set of conversation.
Yeah.
But
or literally the topic of every single just like that's going to be our opener every time we're like, hey, if you're a teacher, don't record your kids. That's breaking the law.
Popular teachers aren't popular because they violate FERPA. That's what my daughter said. I told her because I told my kids when we were on the way to go get our cannolis. I told him like this is who I'm making these videos with, and my daughter Pepper, my oldest one, she's in 7th grade. She was like, I know that guy,
Oh
and I was like,
no.
yeah, right, no, that's wonderful. And I was like, yeah, well, you should know that guy because he's one of the ones that doesn't do weird things.
Well,
That's
that's up for debate.
entertainment is not weird.
Entertainment is, I mean,
Violating privacy is weird.
I think we need different vocabulary terms here. Creepy versus weird.
Okay, I can work with that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I love a good metric by which we can measure things, and
As
connotation is definitely one of them.
as English teachers, we need to be all about semantics.
Okay,
I'm just
I'll gear up.
I'm just can we cuss on this? Are we gonna like permit ourselves to
Okay,
cuss?
I don't cuss on the internet,
Oh, okay.
but I don't, but not for any. I didn't because I didn't really want my daughters to see it. But
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. They're both in middle school now,
Oh,
and then right, yeah, they're learning how to cuss. They got like the training wheel cusses on.
yeah. You got to teach them how to do it. In context. We just talked about connotation.
I know. I've never. I don't know. I've never cussed on the internet.
Oh, we don't have to.
We might
Okay.
work our way into that. If that's organic, I would never say, please cut that out. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I was raised fundamental evangelical, so I can hold my tongue a little bit.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the last few years, I've been letting loose a little bit, trying to just like add a little spice into every sentence that I make, because I'm just trying to make up for lost time.
Mhm. Well, and I think, and maybe this is something, yeah, I think that I was so concerned about the optics of this. Like, I was so paranoid when I started making
Oh,
these
for
on
sure,
who was
yeah.
going to see them, and that I was going to sit in somebody's office and they were going to turn their phone around
Hmm.
and be like, talk to us about this and the image that you're putting out there. And I don't think they can actually do that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if I'm not doing anything that violates rules, I'm at my house in front of my own wallpaper
Hmm.
saying what I have to say, and it's not egregious.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me. Like I still kind of, hesitate on what I do and don't post. Like I still don't if I'm dancing to a video or to a song that has cuss words in it or has suggestive language, I still like bleep it out because it's like this is still my professional setting. Like if I'm at home, maybe
Mhm.
I'll let loose or I'll talk about politics because like there is kind of a like I don't know there's an image that I want to project about myself as an educator that I don't want muddied up with that can be muddied up with my flaws. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I see that. You know who's the king of that? Do you follow Gary Brotherson?
No,
Very clearly Mormon, right? And he's talked about it in a couple of his
very
videos. It's
clearly Mormon.
LDS. And so Gary Brotherson. And so he will dance and he's so good, but his edits of these songs are like that at the Mormon church.
Oh,
You know him, right?
I know him. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
His edits are so kids bop friendly, and I love it because he's doing it's the same thing. I
I
want to be
never
able to show
noticed.
this part without endorsing this other part.
Yeah, I never noticed. That's crazy. Yeah, I just didn't
Yeah.
know his name. Yeah, I knew exactly who he was. I'm following him.
Yeah, I figured you would be. You guys had to cross over on that
Right.
talented dance side of the algo.
Of the algo. All praise to the algo.
I
Please,
love it.
please forgive me for whatever sin I've done to be locked into
I know.
a shadow ban.
I have some old video I posted months ago, right before TikTok got banned for a minute and a half. It got like 30,000 views today, and the RPM is
Whoa.
outrageous. And yeah, and I'm like, okay. I mean, thanks, guys. You paid for some dinner.
Hey,
Like,
since you've been convincing me to post long form content, I don't want to brag, I
yes,
got $10, okay, last month.
I I do. Okay,
You're so
first of all,
shocked. I love
hooray.
that.
Secondly, it should be. And maybe this is something that we talk about too, but I'm fine being full disclosure about the money I make on TikTok. You should be making exponentially more than that. Like it is unreal given again my follower base and my view count versus yours and your view count, that sort of discrepancy that's going on there, because this is a lucrative second job for me, and I feel like it should be for people that are doing things that are of more quality enjoyment. And I'm not being humble.
Yeah,
Like it's your videos are super fun to watch, and
yeah,
so that's nuts to me
well, yeah. I
that it's
mean,
so.
that's like the perpetual life of a dancer, and it make that's a really
Is
validating
that what
point
it
for
is?
me. It's like, every single dancer I know is like starving, homeless, broke. Uh, uh, Not real. It's
Well, no,
hyperbolic,
I
of
know what you
course.
mean though.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
look at and I'm
Like the
trying to think.
starving
There was a
artist
guy.
type.
Well, there was a guy that used to be. I swear he was on Wildin' Out, but maybe I saw him go viral somewhere else. His username's Young Homie, and he has like 11 million followers. And I just saw one of his videos pop up organically on the algorithm, and I was looking through it. My man's getting like 5,000 views.
Yep, yep. Or
Like,
like,
what's going on here?
yeah, someone who like is in our similar realms, like Mr. Hamilton. I,
Okay.
I'm his friend online. We've exchanged messages a couple of times, and like, he's posted. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but like, there's been friends only videos where he's like, I don't
Mhm.
know what I'm gonna do this month. I had to move, and like, I'm, down on, funds, and he's tried to make it as a voice actor, and like his primary content is like skit based. It's like really short. He does
Okay.
like little dances and stuff, which you can't really monetize off of straight through TikTok. There's a little barrier there,
Yeah.
you know.
My concern about talking about this too much is the appearance of sounding arrogant or like making it sound easy. But like last month, my TikTok deposit was like $2,200,
Yeah,
and
that's
and I
so
right,
crazy.
and I do the same thing every day. I set, and this might be what we're talking about today. I set my camera up on my bookshelf in my classroom, and I have a note where I write down stuff that I think is an interesting story, and I stand there and I record it from like 3 to 3:10, and then from 3:10 to 3:20 I edit it, and then I walk next door and I pick up my daughters and I come back, and when I go home, I hit post because I can't post anything on the school Wi-Fi; it doesn't go through. And then that's my TikTok. That's what I do. That's my
It's
second job from 3 to 3:20,
the
and I make these, and then like they hit, and that's it. That's all I do. I don't. I don't know. Maybe we need to try and diagnose what the gap is
Yeah,
between like a Mr. Rupp and a Mr. Hamilton, for instance. I mean, aside from the length,
yeah,
but I know 1 minute and 15 seconds of filming, once I cut out my millennial pauses, is gonna be 61 seconds long. It's gonna be, and then I'm just done, and that's my work. My
yeah.
one yesterday was so low effort. I was so tired, and I sat in front of my window, and I was like, I teach AP and dual enrollment. Here are the good things, and here are the bad things.
But
What do you think?
it's such a good topic. I never thought of that, because the only AP class I took in high school was physics, and it's just because like all my friends were like really smart, and my teacher was like who inspired me to become a teacher, and I was like, oh, I'll take AP physics, it'll be fun. I didn't even take the AP test, I just wanted to take it. Like, I thought the class was gonna be really fun, I'd learn stuff. Um, and I never did dual enrollment because
Uh-huh.
like, I wanted to stick around my school and like hang out. I was like the class president or whatever, so I felt like I had to be like engaged and like a part of it. While the kids who did dual enrollment like physically went to the college and like missed half the day. Um, and I ended up taking like CLEP tests. I don't know if they still have them anymore, which is essentially
Okay.
an AP test. You just have to like
Oh,
self study. But I was listening to that video that you made and was like, I never thought 2 seconds about those things for students who are trying to get credit, and the fact that they could take a whole year's worth of content, score low, and then they get to college and then they're getting a perfect 4.0 in the class. It's like they knew the
mhm.
material.
Well, the big you said so many things I want to talk about. But the first one is it's wild that AP Physics thing. This is something that we have in common. I took AP Physics because my friends took it, and I signed up for it because I wanted to seem like I was smart. Because it's again like
Yeah.
oh 01, oh 02, and so I took it with my friends, and the teacher was the nicest guy, and he knew I had no business being in this class. I wasn't scientifically minded. I wasn't all that. I didn't go to school a whole lot, if I'm being honest. I went to work instead. And like, so I had all these things that were in front of me, and this guy was crazy nice. And he rode bikes. He was a cyclist. And he invited my buddy Joel and my buddy Crystal, and he was like, I'm having a race tonight. You know, it's going to be rainy, but if you guys want to come, and he just talks to the whole class. And we were like, hell yes.
Let's
And we
do it.
hopped in Joel's minivan and we went to it. And I just remember him being so like overwhelmed by the idea that we had shown up and the idea that this teacher was a real person. And I emailed him last summer and I was like, you have no reason to remember me 20 plus years later, but like, I'm a teacher now and I think about you all of the time. When I'm engaging with students, anytime I kind of assume that I know what's going on with them, I need to disregard that and just be decent. And he
Yeah.
sent me the nicest email back, like, man, teaching's been rough. But that was important.
Damn.
I was like, damn, man. God, that was so good. And then you said other stuff. Oh, AP and dual enrollment. That's something we could. So I have it the best. And everybody in that comment section, if you go through and read it, they have all these different versions of it. And like any of their disagreements are not what I do. My class, so I have two sections of it, but one of them has 60 students. I teach it in a big lecture hall. And then my other one has 30 in my classroom. And those students that are in that room can take the AP test. They can sign up for dual enrollment. They can do both or they can do neither. It doesn't change anything about their
Love that.
experience taking the class. So, like, I don't even know who's in the damn college class until I go to the platform at the end to manually input their grades. And I'm like, oh, good, you got college credit because it doesn't affect anything on my end at
Yeah.
all. Same thing with the AP test. Like, cool. I mean, I'm gonna teach you the skills, and then I think you're gonna do well. I'm teaching a Saturday session here in a couple of weeks for like AP test Lang takers across my district. So like I get my own session to teach them. But I don't know, man. Dual enrollment. I can say it on here. If my children were asking, kids take dual enrollment. Don't necessarily take the AP test.
Yeah.
And you want to know the biggest secret? You don't have to take AP to take AP tests. You can just sign up.
There it is. And like I said, it was the same thing with CLEP tests. I don't even know why there was a difference. Yeah, I never even knew AP. You could take the AP test without taking the AP class. Huh.
Every once in a while, I have a student like sneak into my like young adult novel class and they write something. I'm like, oh my god, why weren't you in Lang? They're like, yeah, I didn't want to take it. Can you just, if you want, before I taught dual enrollment, like if you want to take this, it's the most generally accepted one for college credit. And I think you're probably going to get a 5. So I think it's probably going to be worth your money. But depending on where you're going to school, take this bad boy because you're going to blow it out of the water.
Yeah. And if you could get rid of the AP classes, I mean, then you could have more classroom for rhetoric, more of those
Well, and
classes.
part of
Things you care about.
I mean, in my case, again, I have it good. Like, I don't want to, I'm not talking down about the AP program. AP Lang specifically is a brilliantly designed course. Like, the skill standards are perfectly paced in terms of teaching students how to both create and analyze rhetoric. Like, it has all of those things going for it, and I love all of that. So I can, and it has no content. There's nothing, there's no terms. There's nothing I have to teach. I just have to teach them how.
Yeah.
Like, I love it for that.
And you just get to choose the material that best suits those like subject materials.
Yeah, the biggest problem is there's no fiction. Because if you try to define rhetoric something that's created for an intended audience in mind, you can't do that with books because you can't personally deliver books to those people. So that doesn't qualify as rhetoric because the intention isn't there. I don't necessarily agree with that. That's like rhetorical theory. So we ultimately do like a fiction is rhetoric at the very end because it's like, man, you haven't read a book in 2 years because they take AP seminar before it. It's like we got to get some fiction back in your life because that's why you loved English, and now you're taking all these not book classes. Like that sucks.
That's so cool. It's so, man. I was never an AP Lang kid, and now I teach English. English was actually my worst subject.
Mine too.
I got into it because I loved like the linguistic side of everything. Like I loved learning about phonics and decoding, and like that's what I taught in elementary, and then I taught English learners in high school, and now I'm just like teaching regular English in middle school. Um, so I'm like bounced all over the place, and I think like I'm going to get my master's to get principal certification, but I think this is going to be like the last kind of bastion of where I hang out and teach. I really like it. It's
Mhm.
chill. I do love just working with English learners because there's just like little nuggets of things I learn every day on how to teach something that personally affects someone else's life. And it's just like that immediate gratification of like, oh, I'm going to use this today when I go to the store,
Mhm.
whereas the things that you teach in these normal classes, it's like you're never going to need to know the Diary of Anne Frank,
Sure.
but uh, is it a good thing to know? Can it help you understand different aspects of literature? Absolutely. And you'll need to know those. You'll need to be able to have tools to read other things that you'll gain by reading. That's been the big debate right now. My kids are like, "Why the heck are we reading this?" And I'm like, "Why do you need to ask? This is like a fascinating story. It's crazy that we have this thing."
I used to do that same sort of thing where like I thought of my units as the books that we were reading, right? Like we were
Mm,
doing our Romeo and Juliet unit, for instance. And so we're reading Romeo and Juliet, and it's like, well, what's the intention? Well, it was Romeo and Juliet, and like that was good enough because that's the way it had always been. And so I did Romeo and Juliet. I have this one act version that is designed for stage, right? And
right.
so we read Romeo and Juliet, which is designed to be there to be on stage for an hour. So when you're reading it, not acting it out or taking any pauses out loud, I can read this in 4 half-hour sessions. So we're
Yep.
done with it in 4 blocks for the whole reading, but we're using it as evidence to construct argument.
Hmm.
So it's not just like, hey, let's read Romeo and Juliet. Well, why are we reading this? Because we're working on how to use evidence to support claims and ideas in an arguable space in order to like build a good faith argument. And that feels a lot better because
Hmm.
then I don't get those questions. Like, thank God,
Yeah.
because that's I don't because I found that like I didn't really fully have an answer. Like, yes, it's important, it is, but like they're not just going to see that.
Right.
So I can show them importance through the skill set where you're actually applying it towards some kind of conclusion and product.
And then when you hear someone mention 1984, you can be like, "Oh, yeah, we read that." Uh,
Now that one, yeah, let's just go ahead and open that and read every word out loud for like 12 weeks and just not do anything. Let's just read it and then look at each other for a while and then go home.
just be like, "Where are we as a society right now?"
And I think one of my favorite parts about 1984 is how constantly referenced it is by people that definitely,
So that it's like written to antagonize.
yeah, it's like, man, this is literally 1984. Like you're talking about the grocery store. Like that's not that thing that you're applying 1984 to. Like that's not what Orwell was saying. But I dropped my daughters off at the YMCA for their volleyball practice yesterday, and there was this man. He was a solid octogenarian, and he had a green hat on that said "Make Orwell fiction again." And I was like, man, you've seen a lot.
Who do you talk to?
Right. Yeah. Like what you're just sitting at the YMCA just hanging out. I mean, this is like you on a Wednesday. You want to join my bowling league? Like come with me. You seem interesting. How East Texas are
Like
I don't know
Louisiana
a lot about
is
Texas. I
20
don't know a lot
miles
about
away
Texas.
from.
I went to Galveston once.
Oh, ew. How much?
That's the extent of my Texas.
Yeah, there's. I am all for the Galveston slander. Galveston
Okay.
is a trash heap. Whales go there to die.
Is that true?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, if not, it is now. I'm spreading that
Okay.
rumor.
I like that. I've heard it's haunted. Let me tell you. So we went to Galveston because we wanted to be by a beach and it was cheap. And we rented this house. It
It's
was for my
cheap.
40th birthday. And we fit like 10 people in this house and we all had our own bedrooms. And like Galveston's fine. That's not the story though. There's a museum in Galveston that we like walked through because it was right next to us. And it's like, what am I expecting out of this museum? This museum had 4 Warhols, original Warhols. And
Whoa.
like, right. And so I walked in. I was like, are those legitimate? And they're like, yeah, he used to have 8. The guy that donated them had 8. He sold 4 of them, but it's like Geronimo and Annie Oakley, and like
Dang.
they were. It was one of the
Just in
coolest things I've ever
Galveston.
seen in person.
Okay.
Right?
All right. I guess it's got something cool. Whatever.
Yeah. This is the Galveston Redemption Arc podcast. My daughter said to call it Popular Teachers.
Oh, okay. Popular teachers.
But I feel like there's all sorts of blank teacher ones. Like, didn't you tell me about one that's something teachers?
There's board teachers,
Okay.
but they're like a whole conglomerate. They're not really like a group, and like some of them don't even teach anymore. It's like they have their podcast sections. They have like a comedy tour. I think they're doing a cruise. Like,
Oh.
yeah, no, they have like their whole. It's like a whole media agency at this point. Um, I've talked to
Man.
some people in it, and I don't know how much I'm allowed to like talk about, but uh, some sketchy stuff apparently goes on.
I believe that anything started by teachers that then becomes something larger than teaching means that by definition you have unqualified people doing business, and therefore that thing's
Mm,
probably put together with duct tape.
mm,
Right? Like imagine like one of our accounts or this thing, right? If this thing started to blow up,
yeah, we
would
would need
neither
a
of us would know
manager,
what the hell. What would we do?
please.
What would we do? Like, oh, here's my Venmo. Like,
Patreon, of
we can't.
course.
Yeah, exactly. Like, none of this would be even mildly legitimate. It took me forever just to find my tax form for TikTok. Like, I couldn't even figure out how to get to it so I could file.
Yeah,
Like,
and you actually made enough money to file.
I, yeah, I don't know if tax evasion is the kind of thing we talk about on here, but I'll tell you, yeah, it was significant enough that when we talked to our, because I also own a coffee truck, and like,
Oh,
so I
cool.
got others. Yeah,
Yeah.
we bought an old horse trailer and then we gutted it and turned it into a mobile bar.
Whoa,
So
yeah,
like
I've
we have
heard of some people doing that. I have a friend who tried to do that too.
we got we when we were teaching we still got stimulus money because we were in that sweet spot where we got
Ah,
paid but we were
we
still
were also
under
getting
whatever the
money.
number
Yep,
was, and
yep.
so we're like, well, what can we do to like stimulate the economy? And we're like, we could buy this coffee truck and we could do events, and like, so we did that. The moral of the story is I have a tax guy and he was like, well, so you make TikToks, like how much have you made? And I think he expected it to be like a three-figure situation, and then when it was like pretty decently into the fives and he was like, yeah, you actually have to. You, I go, but they just deposited in PayPal. Like it's not. It's like not. It's not
Yeah,
real. They're
yeah.
like, no, it's very much real. you have to. You have to claim that. Damn.
Dude, that's the other thing. I like with my plethora of friends. That's the okay. That's the one thing where I'm like, okay, this is kind of worth it. Is the network you can get just by having 200, like over 200 followers, 200,000 followers, over having over 50,000 followers. Like,
Correct.
like it buys you some legitimacy, and like when people look at your page, you're like, oh, I want this person on my team. So I have a weird array of people who are my friends on TikTok, like friends, and
Mm-hmm.
like some of them recently got into the TikTok shop stuff as it like unfolded over the past year, and just like I kind of like, hey, how's that going with your taxes? Just like I wanted you to run this race for me, and let's see how that goes for you, and then get back to me so that I know is this a good idea or am I going to lose a ton of money? Uh,
Yeah. And what was the answer?
you got to save everything. You got to kind of if you're going to do it by yourself, you've got to like every transaction you make, put it in an Excel document and like
Wow.
keep a record of it. Yeah.
I tried that this summer. There's a treadmill company when I was doing my running, and I always like. I'm sure you get them, like those drop shipping collaborations or whatever. Like I get a
Oh,
half
all the
dozen of them a
time. Oh
day,
my God, they're
and I'm
so
like, this
annoying.
isn't even for like. I don't need a lip kit. Like, what are we doing here? But
Nor do
one of
I
them
need
was
to
this
sell
treadmill.
alcohol.
Yeah, like what? I don't just send me wood watches. Like I'll do that. But one of them was this treadmill company, and I was like, I mean, it's a walking treadmill. My wife uses walking treadmills. I figured I might actually be able to sling a couple of these things. And I had to make 3 videos with it, and it was hyper precise, and I sold zero. And
Hmm.
I averaged probably at that point, I don't know, 5,000 views a video with the ability to go nuclear. And these things got like 200 views a
Oh
piece.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It was disgusting. I think people saw the orange text, like sponsored or whatever, and they were out the door.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so it's so hard to get past the little note at the bottom that
Mm-hmm.
says sponsored post or like you know TikTok shop. Um, and like
The one,
I mean, there's good reason why. It's good that kids and stuff, people who are vulnerable, aren't automatically sucked into it, or they have some sort of buffer zone there. That's a good thing. But it's also like I feel like it hinders me from being able to create a video that is able to inspire for positive purposes, I guess.
Well, and advertisements like that, or even commercials, they operate from such a rhetorical disadvantage, right? Because
Hmm.
they immediately have to announce their intention before they get to phrase it themselves. I know that when a commercial starts, I am being sold something.
Right.
Like I know it. And so immediately from there, everything is tinted with that intention. And it's the same thing with those sponsored posts. But even then, like, man, every once in a while, especially when there's pictures, like I want to swipe to the next slide. Like I want to at least see what the shirt says that I'm never gonna buy.
You read me like a book. I do that too.
And there, it's always the same. I don't know, because I'll tell you, like I get a $5 coupon, and then I buy shirts from the TikTok shop because I can wear them to bowling, like once a week.
Oh.
Once a week, my like lactose tolerant shirt with like cows and tanks has a space to land, and that's going to be with the non-judgmental folks at the bowling lanes.
They're judging you. It's just they, positively judge you. They think it's funny.
They do think it's funny, and a couple of times when I've gone viral and I've made like these and you've probably been on them too. These like terrible clickbait websites where it's like man gets one of mine. I got a box of fruit snacks for my kids, and there was a bunch of empty sealed packs in them. Like it was a production error or something. So I made this post that was like, "Hey, Welch's Fruit Snacks. Like, can I just get like 8 packs of fruit snacks because these were empty?" And somebody at bowling came up to me and they're like, "I saw you on the Daily Dot." I was like, "That's tight. What's the Daily Dot?" And so I looked it up. It's
Wait.
just,
Oh, sorry. Go.
yeah.
No,
No, go ahead. What do you got?
you can get verified if they've like
I only have 3. I need a 4th one.
at
Trust
least.
me, I try every month. Every month I get an update. I set it in my calendar that says attempt verification again. I have 2 on Yahoo. I have 1 on Daily Dot. All I need is one more legitimate article and I get a blue check.
That's so
And that's
unfair.
all. I want it because this is one of the last places left where you can't buy it.
Yeah, yeah. All my kids, like, they know by now. I try to keep it a secret as long as I can that I do like TikTok stuff, but like according to geolocation, how it factors into the algorithm, it's destined that they're gonna find it.
Uh-huh.
Like even if I don't post teaching content, they're gonna find it. Um, but they know it, and they're just like, Mr. Kerr, why aren't you verified yet? That's why that's why your videos are missing. I'm like, you guys don't understand
Right.
how it works, okay? It's like it's because I don't have an article written about me.
And I don't get to explain myself. Like it's so impersonal. Because being able to share this experience with somebody is making this all worth it because you've experienced the unique frustration of like going through that verification and like I put my links in and all I want to do is be like, but I am a person of consequence.
And look, these
Please
people
think
are
I am.
making hot edits of me. I can't have me confused with them.
Right. Yeah. What if one of these have you had your videos put side by side next to people like cutting up sand and soap?
No,
And
that's
like the
that's the good thing about dance videos is like no one can really do that. Like they can steal your videos and post it, and try and
right.
like make it their own thing and then be like, "Oh, this
Mm-hmm.
comes from so and so." Or like Barstool Sports can steal it or whatever. Or not steal it. They usually ask for permission and, you know, pay you like $10 or something.
Right.
Uh,
You get a hat.
you get a exactly. Um, but
But you don't
it
get
doesn't
sensory videos made of you.
no, I don't get sensory videos of me because I guess I don't have anything valuable to say.
There was an account that took a bunch of my videos and they put them on sensory videos and my students. So here's how I found out because I had a handful, like not just one, a group of students that were like, they're taking your videos. And this is over the course of a couple of days, which first of all speaks really interesting to the way that they consume the internet, right? Because I don't think they see me all that often. But the second I'm next to somebody like, I don't know, pouring wax out of a candle, suddenly it's all over their algorithm and they're like, this, like some of these have a lot of views. One of them had like 500,000. It was
Yep.
one that did like 3 for me, but still, man, like they're working. I mean, they weren't monetized yet, but they were working their way to it. It's like, it's that, man, that's allowed?
Now,
That feels kind of gross.
here's the big debate though. Like, that ultimately pushes you out further, like to people who weren't reached initially. And odds are they're going to find the source one way or another. Like, is it a net benefit to have someone exploiting your videos if it spreads it's like free publicity, you know? There's then you have that argument of like, you know, you're getting paid in exposure, and it's like,
Right.
That's never a great situation.
And I would say, like, is it annoying? Yes, but those are views I would not have received.
Mhm.
Right, like that never, my baseline there would have been 0 because that wouldn't have existed.
Right.
So it doesn't hurt in any way beyond somebody else maybe being able to make money off of it. But like, I wasn't going to make money off of it, and it's not coming out of my own money. It's not, so that it doesn't cut into me in that way. It is just a bit bizarre that works so well.
Yeah, it is, and you need to start every time you edit your videos, like screen record some sort of sensory video and put it next to you, and then you just beat them to it.
Okay, now we're going full circle. So with this Romeo and Juliet assignment, like this unit that we're doing, I wanted them to create these arguments that they're doing, but I wanted them to put it on video because presentations, my cats are running. Oh my god. But presentations take forever, and then you make everybody sit through it, and while it's valuable to the person up there, ultimately the dead time doesn't, I don't think, balances out its worthiness. So they're making these videos, and then I'm watching them. And I told them, like, we're working with these rhetorical appeals, this idea of like, what can you do to make your argument engaging and compelling enough to keep somebody around for 60 to 90 seconds, which is the duration that we have given this thing. The amount of them that just had like Subway Surfer at the bottom. And then they're like just talking over the top and with like the text that's popping up, you know what I mean? Like, man, I think your target audience, if it wasn't me, I think you might get some traction out of this thing, honestly, because you're interesting. But then there's a bunch of girls that are doing like, get ready with me while I tell you why the Capulets are bastards. Like, okay, yeah, show me your brush. What do you got? Tell me.
That's so funny. That's so witty. Like, I'm jealous around that of that creative energy from AP kids or
those are ninth grade. Those are 14-year-olds.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, but you can do this stuff. I didn't teach. I taught them.
Can my kids?
Can you let them try?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, because it's one of those things. So like these videos, for instance, because I don't give grades, and so students have to create some kind of baseline, and then they align it to those skill standards based on how they think they did, right?
Yeah.
So here's the decisions I made. Here are my areas of opportunity because this part's ungraded. So you can be extremely genuine. I did not even consider this when I made it or whatever. Then I give them feedback and they update it. So based on what he said and based on what I saw, here's what I want to work on. And then I'm going to teach them those skills. So you overlooked the idea of establishing credibility. Like there was nothing trustworthy about this video at all. But here's ways that you can do that. You overlooked the idea of establishing something logical. But here's how you can do that. Like here specifically is a way to improve that so that at the end, when they make one that's 3 to 4 minutes long, there's a measurable improvement there. So they didn't have to know how to do it because I'm going to teach them how to do it better. And then they're going to be rewarded if points are the reward. They're going to be rewarded in that way because they can literally identify I was at a deficit here and I have grown here and I can measure it because I've thought about that very distinctly. So they don't have to be good at it. They'll just get better at it. And then like, that's fucking education.
That's what we do.
That's how that works. That's it. Yeah. That was the thing I'm on the payroll for. And you also got to play Subway Surfer.
Which is neat. All we could ever ask for in life.
Right? That's why I think pre-assessments are one of those things that are done so poorly without fidelity. Like, well, we have to do the pre-assessment. It's like, well, you don't. Yeah, you have to because it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Not because I'm making you. because how else are you going to know? If especially if you have to look at it, not just like you got a 60.
Yeah.
Like who cares? That's where they lose value, I think.
This whole concept that you're talking about, I've been taught explicitly, you know, operate through backwards design. And I don't think it's necessarily any sort of contradictory way. It's kind of just like a shifting of perspective. It's like backwards design. You know, you think about the test or the standard that they have to work up to, and then you build scaffolds along the way. And then you're just like kind of there. You have this goal, but more so they're forging their path to it.
Oh, I can talk about this for the remainder of my life. But I think when you look at those skills, don't think of them. I don't. I stopped at least. I don't think of those as being things that students need to master, right? If they're doing a pre-assessment, they're going to exhibit those skills. They just might be exhibiting that they are bad at them or that they do not think about them. But for the most part, if it's a skill set, you at least can do it. It's probably just awful.
Yeah.
Or it's done in a way that's ineffective because you're not thinking about it. So if we spend some time thinking about it and honing it, and then you can look at where you're at with that at the end of it, you have improved. I can't. What is mastery? Like, is mastery 100%? Or can we just gauge something that is markedly more effective than the thing that it was at the beginning? It's not like they purposely tank the pre-assessment. They're not playing the long game. I know how important my class is in the grand scheme of things, and the answer is not that much. But that skill set is. And so that's something we can think about. I tell students at the beginning of Lang every year, like, rhetoric's going to ruin your life. It makes things less fun. You're not going to watch TV shows anymore. You're going to see people acting in front of something that somebody wrote with music that was chosen. Like, these are all decisions. This isn't, advertisements aren't funny.
Yeah.
Somebody tried to be funny, and to what extent were they successful? Like, it just changes the perspective on stuff. But I can make them better at that.
Yeah.
They already do that naturally, and we can get better at that.
But and also it's like when you see someone, you can recognize when someone does it masterfully, you know, and there are moments when it mystifies you again. It's like, you know, learning a magician's secret, and then they come out and then they, you know, not only saw a lady in half, but it's also levitating. You're like, wait, you know, like, hold on, there's deeper layers here that I can explore because I have the tools that, you know, Mr. Rupp equipped me with.
A little, and you can at least have the conversation about it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, one of the things I want my students to maybe see is, like, there's so much error in argument that you need to recognize. Rhetoric can only be effective if there is an audience that is capable of being moved by it, right? Otherwise, like, rhetoric falls in the woods and nobody hears it. And so if you recognize that you do in fact have an audience that is unmovable in that moment, based on no matter how astute you are, whatever it is, like, man, maybe it's best to not engage. Like, I'm not going to engage in the comment section because I'm not going to be able to move those people. Am I standing up for myself? To who?
Yeah.
I would. Who am I pointing at? Like, that's not real.
Dang. Yeah. Man, don't ruin people's day jobs. Don't ruin those Redditors who brigade people.
But it worked again. I'm not interesting to everybody, but Andrew Tate can do stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
He can pull it off because he has a lifestyle. He has the lifestyle. That must mean everything he does is correct, at least to some extent, because look at where he ended up.
Yeah.
Which is false. It's that idea that only intelligent people can be rich, and we overlook that cruel people can be rich without intelligence.
Oh man.
Right? Like, you don't have to be super smart. You just have to be okay with being really terrible. I mean, there's other ways too, but that's one of them.
Man, dude, that's a bar. Oh my god. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be okay with being very terrible.
Well, right? Like, I don't know. Scrooge McDuck was tough, but he got to swan dive into a bank of coins. Like, that worked out.
Let's round this off. Maybe go into who we are, like, specifically.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know how I'd introduce myself.
Yeah. I think
I could figure it out. Like, what I don't know how to do is I know how to introduce myself. I don't know how to introduce what we're doing. And so like I don't know what to call this before I get into why we're doing it. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I can get to the why. I can work that out, but I don't know what my purpose is for this aside from the fact that like I mean if we're being really candid about it, my purpose here is that I know money grows on trees so I have to branch out.
Mm, damn, Lil Wayne. Did you write that?
I listen to a lot of rap. I,
Wait, is that actually a lyric?
it's from some. I know it is, but I don't remember what it's from. I think I've just been saying it so long that it's gotten lost. It was probably honestly in somebody's like signature on a V Bulletin forum back in like 2003.
It's pretty
I just
sick.
like never let go of it.
I'll pretend like I know what a V bulletin is.
Message boards. You never posted on message boards?
That
How
was
old
like
are you?
I'm 29.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. How old did you think I was?
oh, I mean, I don't know. I
I
feel like the difference between 29 and 30 in terms of V Bulletin would have made a lot of difference to me, at least in my facial expression. Yeah, so those were the message boards we used to post on. And like, I don't know. It was software. I owned a message board when I was young, and it was
Whoa.
one of the ways. Yeah, it was a rap message board, and it was one of the ways that I was able to pay a lot of my bills in college was because I had Google ads and they were pay per click. And so my use
Oh.
I found out what the keywords were that would pay a lot, and then I made like a tech forum on like my rap website, and then kids would just go in and like post the keywords, and we just like run it up because I don't know they wanted to
Whoa.
help their buddy out so the site would stay online. It was fun, but yeah, those are V bulletin boards.
What a fun little gig, dude.
Yeah,
Golly, you
but
were
and like
running
every
Google for their money.
yeah,
You
all
were
I got
branching
kicked
out.
out. I can't have Google ads. So if this ever needs to monetize, I think I might still have a warrant out. But
It'll just be in my name for no reason at all.
perfect, done or an LLC. Um,
LLC.
so I mean, to me, my intention, if I'm introducing this podcast, my what I think this is something that hopefully people who educate and like to educate and believe in it are interested in.
Yeah.
And it's something that can provide insight not only from, I mean, I've been doing it almost 20 years. You're in it in your 20s. I think those are invaluable sides of this that are worthy of attention. But in addition, I think we're also people, if you're listening to podcasts, and especially this one, odds are that you have some kind of social media presence, whether it's anonymous or concrete. And we are people with extremely unique perspectives on that. Because when you look at somebody with 250,000 followers or even 70,000, there's a significant popularity for two people that have like 20 million likes between them. And
Yeah.
so there's things that we can talk about there, not to like brag on those things because I don't necessarily think they're accolades, but they're sure as shit interesting.
Hmm.
And that's a kind of insight that maybe people don't have. Teachers like to be negative a lot of times. I don't necessarily buy into that, but I understand why they do, so there's no judgment. But that's not what I'm going to ever be here.
Right. Right. Right.
And I think
And that's
talking about the internet's interesting. Like
yeah.
TikTok and the side of it that I view it from is a fascinating side of, I would that's the only thing that I would be interested in hearing me talk about because I wouldn't if I didn't experience it, it's another planet.
Hmm. Yeah. And like making it's not like it's not interesting. It's not novel. Like there's so many
Uh-huh.
discussions and podcasts about teachers who are just like complaining about like, oh, such and such kid freaking sucks, dude. Like
Mm-hmm.
this in that policy is literally the worst. It's like there are some fascinating um, movements and things going on, like bringing educators together that are like cool to find and like talk about.
And what I want to talk about, and especially when it comes to education, and maybe this goes into social media too, but on the education side, is that I'm this deep into this career, and it took me way too long to recognize exactly how many things are variable in this profession. And so even when I go and look at the teacher subreddit and see what they're complaining about, right? And when I say complaining, that's not like I can't believe they're complaining. These are massive problems from the perspective that they are
Yeah.
like from that they have. But and I'd never comment this, but it's like you just don't have to do that. Like you like the thing you're like, well, these kids aren't doing their work even though I'm giving them the study guide and the study guide has everything for the test. And it's like, well, stop giving the test. Like just don't do that anymore then, right? Like they're all failing. Then stop giving points because obviously those aren't incentivizing anything other than failure in your situation. So don't do it anymore. Like they're not turning in assignments. Then get rid of late work. Like I don't know, but there's so much that can be changed, and I think the more you hear somebody that's like, "What if you just don't?" Well, then we can like think of really innovative, interesting things. That's where the most interesting ideas have come from in my educational career. It's like, what if I just I don't know,
Just made them
stop?
grade themselves.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's what it got to is where it was like, well, what if I stop giving zeros? And so I did that for a while, right? And so like, okay, we get 50%. That's great. Well, why am I even giving 50%?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why am I giving anything? Well, like, well, okay, so they have to get graded on the final. Well, no, they
Okay.
don't. Like, no, I mean, I can give them a rubric and then I can, I can give them feedback, but what am I actually trying to do here? Grading's not teaching. So I don't want to do that anymore.
That needs to be a whole episode in itself. I mean, maybe it's kind of coming to be this episode. But it's like,
Right. I mean, maybe I want to be clear. They might work. You might have people that are wildly successful with it. I guarantee you do.
yeah,
But they are not the reason that people are successful. Like those people are still teaching skills and they're gaining buy-in and they're building the relationships and they're doing something the kids don't question the importance of because it's so apparent.
hmm
And so that's I want to be a space to build that conversation because I love this job.
that makes one of us.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that'll be even better because I think there's a guy and I can't think of his name. He's a little guy and he makes content. He used to be a teacher in elementary school, but now he's an administrator and he makes like administrative content because I think he made a lot of money on TikTok and I cannot think of the guy's name. But now he makes the administrative stuff and I think he's alienated a lot of his fan base.
Really?
So I'll be our anchor, Mikey. I'll be there, and then you, as you start to change,
Oh,
we can just track that in real time. I'll be the voice of the people.
what am I? The voice
Well,
of.
you're going to become an administrator, aren't you? I mean, that's on
Oh,
the
okay.
horizon.
Yeah,
I thought that's what you were talking about. Sorry.
yeah. No, you're fine. Yeah, no, okay. I'll just be up there with the elites. Me and Elon will be chilling.
That's what high school administration is.
Yeah. I see them, hanging out in the school cafeteria.
Yeah, just throwing out, just auditing FTEs.
Exactly.
Just getting rid of all those wasteful electives and musics, arts.
Who needs them? That's what I'm saying.
I'm
Where's
just
the bottom
thinking, as
line?
I'm sitting here in my underneath this is my theater shirt because I have like 20 different production shirts because I get them every time they have one.
What does it say? Catch.
Who cares about the arts? Oh, not this sweatshirt. I have theater
Oh.
sweatshirts too. No, they're doing Into the Woods, and I have that production shirt on under this.
Ooh, Solid.
Uh-huh.
Solid musical. W musical, as the kids say.
Is it? I don't know anything about them, but like once a year I get to be in a play.
What?
Yeah,
That's so
I
fun.
do. That's why I signed up for this, like to do this, because speaking in front of different kinds of audiences is a unique kind of scary.
Yeah.
And I like that sort of nervousness. So the students they do one acts, and so like a lot of them are student written, student directed, but they do them once a year, and like the seniors get them and they get to put them on. And so most years I am offered a part in those. So like this year I got to play myself, and one year I got to be Jesus, and I've been a newscaster.
Not too bad.
They did How to Succeed in Business without really trying, and I got to be the voice of the book, like the narrator that like spoke
Whoa.
over the top of it.
Jesus
It was
again, but money Jesus.
a similar cadence because I can't do a transatlantic accent.
Oh, boo.
I know. I don't have that one in me. I'm I'm not much of an actor. I just like attention.
I mean, that's what all actors want anyway. That's what all TikTokers are all about. That's why we do
I
this
couldn't.
thing. We just want attention. Attention and
Is
money.
that why you did you start on TikTok? Is that where you did you just start making these, or did you have a
I'm
presence elsewhere? Like, where did
so
this
okay.
spawn from?
I've never had a presence anywhere, but I've always been making videos. Like ever since YouTube came out, my brothers and I would record ourselves doing little skits and stuff. And then like Instagram came out, and like a big thing on Instagram at the time was there's this urban style gymnastics called tricking, and that's what I got
Hmm.
really like. It's like a whole cult, man. It's so sick. Uh, like in the cool sick way, in the cool
Yeah,
cult way, the best kinds of cult. But they were taking over Instagram, and like you could go to your local gym and like meet up with people, and then those people would go to a gathering, which would be like the whole state like coming together and like doing this weird martial arts Power Ranger type uh, like
yeah.
movement. And then I kind of just dropped off the face of the earth, and then I graduated college, and my kids got me into Musically, and I was like, oh wait,
Oh,
I have like all these like I'm kind of like a little sideshow clown act type thing. Like I can
mhm.
do all these dance things instead of doing the lip syncing that Musically was, or the transition type videos. I would do like dances, and like first couple of videos, I got like 3,000 followers. And I'm like, oh okay, like
Yeah.
this is sick. I'm gonna be famous. Like watch out, I'm gonna be on Good Morning America anytime now.
Oh, you're
Still
on Ellen for sure.
oh yeah, because Ellen was like doing that,
Uh-huh.
and like I'm waiting for my call. But then Musically turned into TikTok, and I've kind of grown my following in waves. I've like I don't know, found myself making different trends and having different characters, and then kind of like I would get 10,000 here, 20,000 here,
Mhm.
100,000 here. It's been a weird journey for me, and it's kind of been a double-edged sword for that reason. It's like it's hard to nail down who exactly is the community that like sticks around. But that's essentially how the whole TikTok situation started for me, and it's exclusively on TikTok.
Musically.
Yeah, like and it's still kind of got that feel to it. It's that use music for some sort of art, if you want to call it that.
I do. I do
Yeah.
want to call it that.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. From there, I haven't been able to branch out, which is like when I see other teachers, I'm like, oh my god, how did you do it? But it's because it's something exclusive to the TikTok culture. It's like I'm staying within the lines here because it works. It doesn't work on YouTube Shorts. It doesn't work on Instagram Reels. And I think I've just come to that conclusion.
My stuff doesn't work anywhere else. Like, I make some videos and I posted them on Instagrams when TikTok started to look like it was going away.
Yeah.
And I mean, I probably made 25 posts on on Instagram, right? And of those 25 posts, none of them are unique to Instagram.
Yeah.
But I have at least 5 of them over 5 million views. I've got another one over 10 million. And all I can think, I'm so jaded by TikTok that I'm like, that didn't even make me any money. Like, man, okay, so like all I did was get berated and harassed in the comments for like wearing a vest. And it's like, man, that didn't even what I do that for? Like, what was that even for? I feel so hollow.
I just want the rush. I want people to call me racial slurs.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I want? I want them to notice this lisp like no one's ever noticed it
Oh my
before, and then
god.
like point it out. Like, yeah, call that to my attention. Like, did you know you have a tongue tie? No.
Dude, Instagram is so brutal if you have like one flaw. Like one thing with me is my facial features are kind of close and I never noticed it. And then I get like all these different references to cuz you can share like gifs in the comments of Instagram. I think you can do it
Hmm.
on TikTok now, but like when I would get like I've had like 2 videos get like 1 million views or something.
Hmm.
When that happened, it would just be comment after comment of such and such cartoon character with a tiny face. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's so,
I'm gonna go cry.
I have not ever noticed that about you. I know I get a lot of them. The lisp is number one, but otherwise, I think generally I have everything's fine. But I had palsy, And so like half of
Oh,
my like lip droops and like my eye does a little bit, not so when I'm tired it's pretty bad. But
yeah.
like part of my mouth droops and I think the beard kind of covers it up. But when I'm talking, especially when I get animated for like the videos that are pretty successful, so people are seeking flaws so they can like say something hot in the comment section, they notice that and they're like, "Why do you only talk out of one side of your mouth?" Like, well, I guess it's a disability. Like, I don't know. I can't. You want me to like move it manually? Like, that's not gonna work out. So, God, yeah, they get cruel, especially when there's no character limit. TikTok's a lot nicer.
They spare you.
They do a little bit. I think they do. So you made these dancing videos. So you made videos that were primarily orbiting around dance, and then the classroom became the backdrop,
Oh yeah.
and now you're really working, and not just now, but lately you've been working towards speaking in that classroom as somebody who cares about classrooms.
Right. Yeah.
I like
Yes.
that. I like
Yes.
that. That feels like a natural progression.
Yeah. It's because I blew out my knee.
Okay. Oh
I,
no.
no, I'm just kidding. Kind of.
Oh, I was like, damn.
There's something going on there. But it's still good enough to be able to do what I normally do. Um, but yeah, no. I mean, honestly, it's just like I know that the criteria is if I want to make money on this, I have to make 60
Mhm.
second videos, and I've got to come up with like I can't just talk to uh sorry, that was a Hawk Tuah joke. I can't just talk to a camera about like any random thing. Like I have to script it out. Like I go to bed at night and I'm like pull out the journal. Like, oh man, what could I talk about tomorrow? Uh,
Oh my God, that's I love that though.
yeah, but it
That's very
never comes to fruition.
okay.
Okay, it does. Like it's come to fruition like 3 times in the last month, I guess, which is something
Hmm.
rather than nothing. But yeah, I never thought of it that way. Just like being like transitioning it to someone who just like speaks from a classroom about classroom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of where my progression ultimately took me because when I started making TikToks, and that was the first exposure I'd ever had. At one point, I made a funny video with my daughter when she was really little, where we were singing a Drake song of all things, and it was like God's plan, and my daughter was like tearing these like Lysol wipes out of a tube. And it's like, she say, "Do you love me?" I tell her only partly. And then my daughter's like, "I only love my bed and my mom and my sister. I'm sorry." And she's like just pulling these Lysol wipes out. And I gave it to one of my students who was like cheer famous on Twitter. And
Yeah.
this thing did like 250,000 on Twitter. This video, this grainy
Dang.
video of me, not from my account. And I was like, oh my God, I'm I'm a
I'm.
big deal.
Can someone please
I have
cast
no
me as
followers. I have
Jesus?
nothing to show for it. No one even knows it's me. But this one tweet did numbers. And so I wasn't going to do TikToks. I like to, I don't know. I like to pretend like I had some kind of PhD in maturity. Like I had personal social media, but nothing that was public. I was a teacher. I was afraid they're going to stalk me like they care. And so I made a public TikTok, and my very first video, if you go and look on my profile right now, my very first video is one that I just reposted because it just came up in my memory. So this is like the 3 year anniversary, but it's me doing this pin trick. And like, it looks like magic and it's kind of a funny video. And do you know who Party Shirt is? They're two
mm,
DJs.
I don't think
They used
so.
to call themselves Party Shirt. They're the guys that used to do the Factor Cap videos, and like they'd try to see if stuff was true that they saw. Well, anyways, they had like millions and millions of followers. I had one video and they stitched it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Look, I had one video, one, and they stitched it. And it was like, this is easy. Like, oh my God, this is great. But I don't know. I didn't have a ton of followers. And then I went, have you ever truly gone viral?
N-
Like,
Here's the thing. I don't think that I have. I think a video of mine has. Okay, we talked about like someone reposting your content. I did have one
yeah.
video that got reposted on Facebook without my permission. Didn't give me anything.
Oh,
But it went like super viral. But that's like the only like the most views I've had is 8 million views. But I'm good
okay.
at kind of getting over 100,000 on some of these and getting dance is good at acquiring people because people want to either copy dance or they like what you see and
Right.
then they're like, oh, okay, like that's kind of cool to watch, and it's like a low stakes investment.
About I had like 1,000 followers. Like
Hmm.
I had just gotten the ability to go live, and I thought that was amazing. So like I'd be doing the scoreboard of the football games and like set up my camera and go live. And there's like one person who just wanted to know what the score was because it was too cold to go. And I was going with my wife, and we were going to get passports. And I made the video. I'm sitting right here in this exact spot. But we were going to get passports because we were going to go on a cruise. And you had to pay with a check of all things. But full circle moment, I have to pay for bowling with checks, so I don't have to pay the ATM fee. So I just have checkbooks like all over the place. So I look in my center console for one of my checkbooks and I pull it out, but it doesn't look like mine. And I open it and it belongs to this woman named Jessica. Okay. But like I said before, like we have this mobile bar. I was like, Mariah, that's my wife's name. I was like, Mariah, is this one of like the people you've worked for? She's like, I have no idea who this is. And I was like, I have no idea who this is. So we Google this lady. She's exactly our age. She lives in the same town that I teach in. And it's like, I don't have time for infidelity. Like, I would be, and when I say I don't have time, not like I'm above it, like, there is literally not enough hours in the day for that to ever occur. So my wife and I kind of just laugh about it, right? And so I come home with my 1,000 followers and I sit right here and I'm like, if your
I've
name's Jessica
changed.
and you live in, if your name's Jessica and you live in Northern Colorado, I got your checkbook and this looks real bad. So because we called her, we like found her number, and so my wife left her a voicemail and was like, "Hey, I have your checkbook, and you might want that back, right? Like I don't even want to know how it got here, but like you might need this, right?" That video did it, like the views. I don't want to say only 5 million, right? Because
Yeah.
I want to make a distinction. When I say viral, I mean that I was on Yahoo News, I was on local news, I was driving to work with my kids, and they were talking about me on Sirius XM on my way to work. It was it was horrifying. Like I don't know how to discuss the anxiety that goes along with it, especially when like I'm look, if I had actually been having some kind of affair, could you like, woo, like it would have ruined my life, of course, right? But then this, it's like something I'm being. People are like, this guy's lying, and now all the body language experts are coming out, right? And like, oh, this guy's clearly a narcissist, and it's like, I'm not any of those things. I just thought it was a real funny story. I'm telling it. You can hear my wife taking a shower, like right across the hall, right here. It's like this is not, guys. I just thought it was a funny story and it was nuclear. But my point is, I had 1,000 followers, and then I had 45,000, and it happened in less than 3 days.
That's crazy.
So, so now all of a sudden I had this following, but it was full of people that
That
were
weren't
just digging through my account,
yeah.
trying to find like evidence on me, right?
Huh.
Like trying to like we're waiting for like the resolution to me finding this lady and her checkbook, but I ended up with all these followers. It took me, I had 40 to 45,000 followers for a year.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't get more. I would always lose them because
Yep.
I'm a teacher and I'm a dad, and like that's the kind of stuff I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, you're not gonna become a
But then no,
detective all
but
of a
no
sudden.
one was there for that.
Yeah.
No one was there for that.
Yeah.
And so then finally it like leveled out, and now it started to grow over the last like 6 months. Like finally. That is my TikTok experience. But more importantly, I think that might be the sort of path that you're on right now,
Mhm.
right? Like as you transition from this one space that people know you for, even though mine was like meteoric, right? Mine just happened like in a weekend, and then all of a sudden they were there, and it's like, so sign up for the creator fund, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But like that was I in most of my followers' eyes, I transitioned from this guy with this dramatic life, which I do not have, into somebody who teaches and likes it and has a pretty positive disposition. And that's been wild.
Yeah. But you've finally been able to establish your image and your like niche, if you want to use that word. It's
Mhm.
like people now follow what you do because you do that thing rather than the one thing that you did to go viral one time, which yeah, like you said, is like what I'm in transition of. And like a
Mhm.
lot of the frustration that I feel like a lot of creators feel, especially ones trying to monetize and find themselves
Mhm.
becoming speech experts because they're like, oh god, I gotta write a whole thing to go for 61 seconds.
And that, I'll tell you what, like that part of it, what I've found is that, and I don't mean to do this, but I think I've been teaching rhetoric courses so long that I naturally fall into like the like, why can't I think of the name of it? I teach it, but like the most, like the classic oration model, that's what it's called. Like the classic oration model where I basically like start with something that builds attention, make a claim, support it, address potential counter arguments, and make concessions so
Right.
that I get to a conclusion. Like, but I'm not like outlining it. I think it's just become the way that I know to make a point where people aren't in the comments being like, actually, you're full of shit, and I can point to exactly why. Like, I don't I don't want that.
Yeah.
I teach that skill so I don't have to hear that.
But
And that's
what, like, sometimes you do want that if you're like trying to bait for engagement, you know? Maybe you need to suck at your job a little bit more.
I get sometimes I misspeak. I'll say the wrong word, right? And so like my logic was right, but I spoke too fast or I said the wrong thing. Like there was one where I was talking about an error I made with one of my students and I made her cry and it was terrible. And then instead of it sounded like I was saying I apologize profusely as though I was doing it for the first time in this video for this thing that happened 18 years ago, but I said apologized. But the caption picked up apologize. And they're like, man, that's really awesome of you 18 years later to apologize on the internet for engagement. And I was like, it's not.
Guys, I got a lisp.
Not only is it not what I said, but it's also not true. Like
Yeah.
I know I talked to her since then. Like I apologize every day to this young lady, but like that one letter just got me so many comments that were like, "You're a terrible
Yeah, but
human being."
then again, you can make a video completely off of that and be like, "Hey, I got misunderstood, and you guys, blah blah blah." You know, it's crazy.
I think the thing is, do you assume that people come back to get that kind of follow up? Because I just never have. And so like I never make those sorts of follow-ups unless it's like the one that I made about how I teach my class and
Mhm.
like I truly overlooked saying like this is how much the self-evaluation's worth, which was like the most important part of the video and I didn't say it. So like in that sense I felt like I was incomplete,
Mhm.
but I won't ever clarify on those stances. I'll just kind of keep it moving and they can keep bickering.
Yeah, I think I think it's I think there is a honeypot there, kind of like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
especially if your second video goes more viral than the first one, like
I've
addressing a
never had
comment.
that.
I've never had that either, but it comes across my pages all the time. I know it's
Yeah,
real. I know
yeah.
it's out there. It's like unicorns or something, you know, or
Mhm.
narwhals, you know. They're definitely out there.
Like the ones that go way viral.
Yeah.
It's like,
And then people
yeah,
click on that comment to go see the original video. And it's like, oh, little, little spicy
man,
action there.
maybe that I've never gotten there, and I think it's because, and your profile probably does the same thing. But my experience with TikTok has been a fascinating one as a teacher of rhetoric because it's fascinating to see what lands on the algorithm and what doesn't, and then trying to diagnose that. Like
Yes.
sometimes I
Yeah.
just wonder if the algorithm just says no, and like that's fine. But then there's other ones where I'm
Yes. Yes,
looking
it
at
does.
the demographics of it and the watch through rate, and like I'm hovering in on the moment where people left it. If it's after 5 seconds, like man, what was I doing there? Like what I made an error, not in my content, but in my presentation,
Hmm.
and like I study that like game tape.
Yep. Yep.
Like I want to refine that.
For me, it's kind of led to a dirtying of the well. I don't know if that's the right phrase for it, but it's like
Okay.
there's certain, I'll do some sort of power move, like an explosive move to,
Okay.
like, around that 2 3 second mark to like try and get it. But I can only do so much in my
Right.
classroom. I'm 6'3". If I try and
Oh
do
my
like
god.
any,
Are you for real?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That's all.
I'm not 6'3". I'm 5'10". It's respectable. I'm not like a little guy, but I'm not like a big guy.
5'10" is the perfect height. Everyone
I'm
over
taking it
five
not
ten, it's
bad.
like, hey, what are you doing up there? Who are you trying to spot up there? There's no
I
ladies
just
up
want to
there.
know what the top of my refrigerator looks like.
It's not pretty. I can tell you that.
Oh,
Not
there's a
just in
croissant up
general.
there. But anyway, sorry. So you can only do so much in your class because your feet are going to hit the fire extinguisher.
Yes, no, like legitimately, and on top of that, it's just like tall guys have bad knees.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
tried everything, yoga. I've tried it. Like
Mhm.
stretching every morning. I've tried it. So like I'm limited to a few moves, and I know that like people see that, so I kind of have to weigh like, okay, is it worth it to try and bring in more of an audience to see this new thing that they don't normally see with teachers, that they don't normally see on TikTok?
Yeah.
Or do I try and invest in the audience that I have right now by doing some new kinds of movements or less like explosive things that are like, you'd see in a street performance, but more like
Yeah.
precise things that when people are paying attention, they're like, oh my gosh, that was like really sick.
I think this is where there's a lot of ability. You're like bordering on this. Are you familiar with the term self-aware wolf?
No,
Okay, so the idea of like being
I
a
love that.
self-aware wolf is like where you like build up all of this like this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense, and then the conclusion is where you turn and you don't go the way that you should have, but you go this other way. And so
Yeah,
my point is like you talking about the way that you construct those videos and the power moves up front and like all of that to dancing, but like that translates into you talking into your classroom
right.
about the things that you want, and I want to celebrate that. That's why I'm not fully calling it like self-aware wolf, because you're doing those things. Taping your camera to your ceiling is so dope.
Yeah, it's
I showed my daughters that. I was like, have you seen how he does this? They're like, Dad, you have to do that. What does he use? And I'm like, tape.
no,
I
no,
don't
no.
know, but
It's a little magnetic holder. It's so sick. But I got
it's
it.
so sick.
Yeah,
It's such a good idea.
yeah. I started doing it because it was like for dance videos. It was
Yeah.
like a cool new angle, and it's like you can't really see. It's hard to frame myself because
Yeah.
it's a 1080 by 1920 like frame, and it's like vertically it's so hard for my whole body to fit in that, especially with like explosive movement. So I was like, oh dude, I'll just like drop it down, and it looks like kind of sick anyway. It kind of
Hmm.
it gives you the illusion of like faster movement and
Yeah.
so forth. But yeah, and then on top of that, it's like every teacher on TikTok is recording like three different ways. They're propping it up on their desk and being like,
Just
"Oh my
like this
god,
one
yes,
right here.
yeah,"
Yep.
or they like get into their car and they put it on their steering wheel, and like everyone does that. And it's
Hmm.
uh, like I'm trying to do something that no one is necessarily doing, and it's easy to play with like video, like editing kind of tricks,
Hmm.
like zooming in, zooming out, like tracking along with you, because like those are it makes the video feel less stale. It like adds
Yes.
in a little bit of it lets the video do the storytelling along with the words.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly it. Because every time I've tried to, so I have, again, like I said, my spot. And if anybody's ever seen my videos, like I really do, I stand right there. And I
yeah,
stand there because it's a perfectly symmetrical place for lighting. So I have my bookshelf, but then on either side, I have two full, like massive, like 6 to 8 foot windows on either side. So
hmm,
I have this natural light that comes in. So I kind of can't stand anywhere else in my classroom because the lighting would be like half shadows
yeah,
or it'd be behind me and you wouldn't be able to see me. So I'm just sort of like stuck there. And so after watching my videos for a while, I looked behind me and like in some of my early ones, like I still had my back wall was cabinets. So
yeah,
I went through during the summer, took all the doors off and turned them into bookshelves. And then like there wasn't enough above it, so I started adding all sorts of just like random
yes,
anything I could find to fill the walls so I could at least have color. But like you said, then I started to mess with this idea of like if I'm talking for 20 seconds, that's a lot of stale camera.
hmm,
So I'm gonna like try to crop them,
yeah,
and but then I'm just like
yep,
it just
yep,
looks
yep,
stupid. But and I hate going back and looking at those. I wish I could just unedit them. It
yes,
just I don't know. It feels very
yeah.
millennial in like a way
Yeah.
I'm not proud of.
I mean, there's nothing to be proud of being a millennial. What do you remember? 9/11. Good job.
God, I was a senior.
I was in kindergarten.
for this undertaking that we have taken on in having these conversations, what do you want your audience to understand, the audience of this to understand, and what do you want them to do with that understanding? And there can be multiple. Like, but what is one of them? What is something you want the audience to understand?
Yeah, I think like you phrased it well when you were like mentioning like I want there to be people who come to resonate with the cool things that happen when people come online and make content, or they, talk about practices in the classroom. And those things I'm equally passionate about. I feel like the one about making online content gives us an ability to talk to more people, but it's like educational content is like people will connect to that personally and like be invested in it. So I mean, those aren't like mutually exclusive ideas.
No, because I think that's where I'm at too. Like, I I think that when I've found a space where I really like to communicate with people online. I like to create these things and I like to post them. That makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something, that I'm doing something worthwhile. And the reception, frankly, just feels nice. It fills my bucket. Just because I am on the internet does not mean that I am an internet personality. Like, I barely know how to do what I am doing. Like, we had to sit here so I could figure out how to use this microphone because I've never done it in my life. I downloaded Discord right now. I barely know how to use TikTok, and I'm not being humble about it. Like, watch these videos. There's not a lot happening there.
We'll make you a
So,
Discord kitten soon.
oh, can't even wait. I know what that is though. But I think maybe one of the things I want an audience to understand, and I say audience not like I'm speaking vaguely to things, but like there's a listening audience, right? There's no barrier to entry to speaking on the things that you are passionate about. You can learn how to be better at that, but you're not going to be immediately good at it because that's how learning works,
Right.
right? Like, on road trip, they say shortcuts are supposed to be hard. If it were easy, that would just be the way. And like, I think about that a lot. Like, there has to be a learning curve for stuff like this, and so maybe that's what I want people to get out of that. So maybe they put themselves out there. I've talked to so many amazing educators, and they don't make any content. And it's like, I'm not saying you have to. Like, of course you don't have to. You don't need to, but like, man, I think people would really benefit from this.
Yeah, people would find
Like,
that like so cool if you talked about it.
even if you just made a couple and you put them out into the world, like, that would be super interesting. And I have a buddy who talks about AI all the time, and like,
Yeah.
he gets frustrated because his videos don't get a ton of views, but it's like, man, I'm listening. And like, I know that maybe it hasn't caught fire just yet, but I've learned stuff and I've put it out there, and now hundreds of kids have been affected by this thing
Yeah.
that you post. Like, more, I've affected more kids than you have views on that video. So that maybe was worth it. I mean, maybe not monetarily, but damn,
Yeah.
I use school AI all the time to make chat bots. Like, thanks, Matt K. That's dope.
That's so sick. So it feels like
Yeah.
we're coming to a point of it's like we want to talk about cool stuff, and sometimes
Yeah.
that's about education.
That's really, yes, that's exactly what it is. I think there is something here where if people are listening, full disclosure, I don't listen to podcasts. I don't. I've never been interested in it. I don't even listen to audiobooks, if I'm being honest. Like, there's people talking. It's never been my favorite thing. And so it's with that if people are interested in people talking, I'm going to go ahead and assume that they either want to be educated or they want to escape, among other things, but those have to be two primary reasons.
Right.
So we can talk about education, you can learn about that, or you can be entertained by the idea that like maybe you might not be somebody who has these experiences on the internet, maybe like you and I do, which are very different, and we can provide insight on that. Because every time, for instance, I make a pay transparency video about TikTok, people are all over those comments.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But even I talk about teaching dual enrollment, all over those comments, because like, they don't know what that's like. I talk about teaching without points, all over it, because they want to learn or they want to hear about somebody doing something they'll never do. So I want to make a podcast that caters to that.
Thanks for listening to episode 1 of the pod. Again, please hit subscribe or like or follow. And if you want to make a sick TikTok edit of either one of us, we give you full permission. Nothing is stopping you. Go ahead. Do it. Please exhibit your own free will at this time. And we'll see you in the next one.